Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels, and yes, we're going back to Medicaid today. But first, disclaimers and the trigger warnings. And I'm going to tell you what route we're getting ready to go through now as we go through the Medicaid series. First off, disclaimer. In regards to our sources for this series, every bit of documentation we go over throughout the duration of it, you're going to find links to it right up there in the description box for you. So, should you like to deep dive on the subject on your own time, links are up there. Please feel free to do so. I'm going to start with the political trigger warning first. I am not MAGA. I am not left. If you must know my political party, I don't have one. Because quite frankly, the ones that we currently have do not represent me or any individuals like me whatsoever. And when we are lucky, we might get partial amount of lip service right at towards the very end of political campaign season to see if we can get certain stragglers over the edge and into power. So, keep that in mind while you watch these series. And also, please keep in mind if you're unable to argue and debate civilly on the facts at hand, but feel the need instead to dump all of your lamest and most uninspired insults, such as Trump derangement syndrome, yeah, I'm gonna delete your comment and block you from the channel. I am willing to more than welcome individuals who don't agree with how I view things. I do not accept uncivil morons lighting up my comments with uninspired insults. Nobody has time for that. This is your only warning on the matter. Any source information? Like I said, in the description box. Check it out for yourself. But yeah, guys, come on. Can't even put the effort to be creative with your insults, then I'm not even going to waste a moment of my time dealing with you. If you're going to be a clown, be good at being a clown. If you can't be good at being a clown, then stop being one. Sometimes less is more, people. All right? All right. Also, trigger warning. This channel is marked not for kids for a reason. I do use profanity. And some of the subjects we cover, like the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center, are definitely more than just a little bit on the dark side. So if you got a child that is 16 and younger and they watch the channel, parental supervision, very much advised, all right? All right, so speaking of, where are we going with the Medicaid series? Well, we've already kind of gone over a very good amount of areas where Medicaid funding is used other than just the obvious medical health care. We have talked about their assistance in regards to helping us get community-based jobs and job programs. We have discussed how the funding is often acting in concert with places like Medicaid, like Social Security, like Section 8, where they provide a partial amount of funding to help with things such as getting individuals who are disabled or just a little bit under the mark up and off of the street. We've gone into a whole lot of that, but what we haven't gone into quite yet, it is in regards to Medicaid funding and how do we get all of those different areas where Medicaid is going through. Because if you're not used to the system, it seems almost a little bit chaotic, right? But if you've known anything throughout this series, everything's interconnected, everything works together. So what we are going to be going into is essentially how it works. Specifically in regards to how Medicaid funding works is it puts funding, it covers the costs for provider services. So what is provider services? Well, we're going to use, for example, ARC. A, because they are the biggest. B, because I have the most experience with them and the most connections. I don't have as many with Easter Seals like I do quite with ARC and Judavine Center for Autism and the Center for Independent Living folks. Okay? So, how it works is this. You go in, you do intake with your regional office, right? So you have your Department of Mental Health, you got the Division of Developmental Disabilities. So what you have already done is you've got the diagnosis, you've gotten in touch with your regional office, and you have been approved for Medicaid, so you have the funding to cover the state services. And now what you've got is you have a case manager. The case manager, in my case, had me immediately afterwards, after getting accepted, recommend us to go to a particular clinic, which is actually, I believe, one of the borough clinics. It's been so long ago. God, high school. So over 20 years. God, I'm old. Anyways, and then we did the full functional behavioral assessment to get a baseline of exactly where I was sitting, what did I need help with, and also taking into account age as well, right? Exactly. We reviewed that with the case manager and with the doctor, or in case of me, my entire team. And then with the facts on hand from the full functional behavioral assessment, you take a look at different providers for disability services, right? Okay, but the providers, we're getting to it. So you get approved. You get your full functional behavioral assessment done. Based on that, you are able to pick out a provider agency that's going to be handling your services, right? Okay, we're going to say the one that you picked out is ARC. Okay, now I was late transition age. What that means in the service system, folks, is you are that age where you are coming up and out of high school and then going up into, the more adult services, right? So I was basically herded in directly straight into the transition program right off the bat. So Medicaid's covering that. Now, what did that look like? Glad you asked. Okay. First of all, what that Medicaid funding was covering was my community integrator, which is kind of a simplified, similar to a direct care staff, but with not really all of the same requirements. I didn't need help with getting dressed or getting bathed or cooking or cleaning. The community integrator, specifically for an individual like me, was to assist in the transition process and helping me better learn how to cook a little bit more healthy, life skills such as being able to manage a checkbook, being able to manage my own health care, both medical and mental health, and how to keep track of all of my documentation, how to make sure all of my bills are covered and always on time, how to have all my papers together in case I might need it, especially since these departments usually work so close together. That's why I got the Accorda file. I can just drag it along to whatever office I need to. It has all my papers, so it's guaranteed whatever they're asking documentation wise, it's probably going to be in there. Right? So, CI would come out and see me every Tuesday, once a week, usually anywhere between an hour and a half to 2 hours. And because me, autistic, and they still had this weird thing of we gotta desensitize you to people. Sorry, ARC, I love you all. I'm still not desensitized. I'm just getting better endurance in dealing with it. But boy, once I come into my autistic pseudo bubble of nope, I'm not doing shit. I'm not talking to anyone. I'm not answering the door. Shoo, go away. Shoo, go away. Silent movie, dinner, and one of my little adaptogen drinks or my tea. But anyways, not the point. Not the point. And that some of that funding would go to cover that part of my treatment program. What were my other services through ARC that Medicaid was covering? The job program. Now, the job program is also secondary program. Depending on what the goals are for you yourself, particularly if you're working within the person-centered planning model the way that I was, ARC's program can either help you in regards to getting together and getting ready for secondary education. And they do have different things that they can help you with there. Or you can get in to the other side of the program, which is just the straight job program pipeline, which is the one I used at the time, because by that time period, I had already spent 2 years at OTC. I was good. Thank you, high school, who helped me get all the credits early so I could spend the last 2 years getting college taken care of like ahead of everyone else. I really appreciate that. That was pretty awesome. Granted, it seems like graphic arts is not really hiring all that much in like this part of Bump, Missouri, but neither here nor there, right? Also, what else did it cover? Job programs. Well, within the job programs, it covers more than just getting me out in the community and helping me apply to jobs and getting myself employed. It also assisted with, through Medicaid funding, assisting me in getting started with bus passes. It gave me at least bus passes for at least about 2 weeks worth of bus passes to get to and from work. So Medicaid covered some of that cost. It covered the cost of having a job coach on site with me. So what does that mean? Well, that means the job program doesn't just get you job employment and then wish you luck. During the first week or two, depending, the job coach, once you have been able to secure an actual job, would be remaining with you at that job. Again, 1 week or two, depending on the situation, to help you through the training and make sure that that job position is actually going to be a decent fit for you. If during that 2 weeks anything pops up that shows that maybe this is not going to work, or if there's maybe something an assistive device could help with, things of that nature, It covers those types of costs as well. And sometimes it does also help cover the cost of assistive devices in regards to employment if you need that additional assistance when being able to communicate with your coworkers or your boss. So it covers that as well. So we've got job coaching, we've got our CI or direct care staff, whichever one that you go with. It also covers things such as day programs through the service provider. So, what do I mean by that? That means ARC, as a private provider of disability services, have their own day centers that are up. There's at least 2 of them in town for people who are folks with disabilities to, I don't want to sound horrible, but individuals who need a little bit more extra help than someone like myself would need, except in very rare circumstances. So there's more staff on hand. It's also a way to keep them safe. Those staff are specifically trained to be able to lift if need be, how to restrain properly if that is something that needs to happen. It covers all of that good stuff, right? Exactly. Now, there's some additional services that ARC provides that you are welcome to, but really have nothing to do with Medicaid funding. They have their ARC prom every year. I've never went. I'm probably never going to go. I only went to the 2 proms that I did was because everybody around me was trying to tell me not to. So each time I decided to show up and make a nuisance of myself in the most absolutely positively obvious way humanly possible. Like showing up to my first one in full medieval regalia, full velvet floor length dress. See, I've always been this way. But anyways, they have programs like that. They have their bowling leagues, and I know they have their indoor pool. They also have programs for individuals like me, should my legs ever stop spasming, where your Medicaid funding could help into their program of teaching disabled people how to drive. They have a whole program with that too. They have different life skill programs that you can get access to inside the buildings and all of that. So they are providing your direct care staff. They are providing your job coaching. They may be providing funding to day centers. And now we are going to get into funding regards to places like assisted living, like Crowhaven. Some of these providers provide services for group homes or assisted living. See, Crowhaven was actually where I was at, and it was under the management of ARC. Obvious why I would go with ARC, considering it's just might as well make everything easy, right? So, what does that mean? That means funding through Medicaid to the provider ARC help cover the costs of not just getting us into our apartments, but also covered the costs of the manager and the assistant manager of the assisted living apartments. That funding through the provider through Medicaid covered expenses such as computer work, taking care of all documentation. That once a month meeting I told you guys about, where the manager of the building, the second manager underneath them would be in the meeting, my case manager from the state, my direct care staff. If necessarily one of my doctors would be there. I think that's only happened once. But yeah, that's pretty much how it works. Medicaid sends the funding to the providers. Then the providers take a look at your overall program and they get the determination about how much that is going to cost. And then Medicaid will then supply that funding to the provider. Then the provider uses that to pay your direct care staff, your apartment manager and assistant manager. It covers if you are out from town like we were. It covers not just the van to get us to and from, but that's also van maintenance, gas, all things of that nature. It covers costs such as maintaining the lawn, if there was going to be any decorations out there, it's covering all those costs. So you can kind of see how that funnel works, right? Okay, now let's get to some reading, right? So let's take a look. We'll take a look at APSI here in just a moment, but first I wanted you to get a look at this here.